PNR Show, Season 1, Episode 21. Blondes have Rhar fun.
I'd rather have lager than lime. I'll take a strong stout over stride. I'd prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for lime. I'd rather have lager than...
Good evening! If you've got a hankering for beer and a thirst for podcasts, you've come to the right place! It's the Pint of No Return Show, and we're on episode 21. I was mentioning to the guys before the show started that our podcast is now old enough to drink with us. We can now get our podcast beer and strippers in that order. How about it, guys? With me, as always, is Keith, Jeremy, and Gary. Gentlemen, how does it feel to be 21 episodes in?
Seems like more.
Good.
Seems like a lot more.
Is that in a good way or a bad way?
I don't know. I'm still counting from the original show, so this is like Season 6, Episode 472.
Wow.
Or something like that, I'm guessing.
It just never seems to end. Well, if all goes well for you all, I'm sure I will call this show the Happy Time Magic Hour before the end, so
It will.
like you haven't missed a thing. All right, so in the time that we've been off, we've had our 4th of July. Happy 4th to everybody.
4th. Thank you.
Because
July
America.
4th be with you?
July the 4th, yeah, I got it.
That doesn't work.
And we're heavy into the summertime, summertime. And I don't know about you, but I think it's time for some cold beers.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank, of course, the Poxy Boggards for the use of their song, and Stu Venable. You can find them on iTunes or at poxyboggards.com, POXYBOGGARDS.com. End of mandatory plug. Keith, I know you haven't checked the feedback, so I won't even ask you.
Double Diamond, the beer the men drink.
What was that? Are you adding in extra sound?
I'm so glad you read the chat, Rob.
Woohoo!
We have bumpers, I announced last week.
That's last week. I'm not supposed to be ready. Maybe during the pre-show you let me know.
We have a chat room.
That would make the pre-show productive, and that's not really the
God.
point of it. So.
We haven't. Jeez. Okay. So, yeah, Keith's got bumpers. So now I'm gonna make these awkward pauses between sections of the podcast. So
No, I'm just gonna do them right over you.
Whatever.
I'm just gonna step on you with the bumpers.
Frankly, I don't know why we try, folks, but you and I can drink beers. Yeah. We are continuing in our Texas unit, our Texas in summertime, and we've got 2 beers coming up from Rhar and Sons, Rhar, which is a brewery out of Fort Worth, Texas, which, if you're not familiar, is very near Dallas, which is about 3 hours north of here. And they make a Rhar's Blonde, a Munich-style Helles lager. It was the first beer they actually made, and it's kind of that European-style lager beer with that maltiness and that light and light color and creamy head, and not too heavy on the heavy side. In fact, you hold the beer bottle up to the light, and you can see right through it. So it's going to be one of those really, really nicely light pouring beers. And the gentleman didn't know offhand what the ABV was before we started. I went to the website, to the Rhar website, and it is in fact 5.0 alcohol by volume, which automatically earns a -1 on the rating scales for Gary and Jeremy.
Jeremy, I like that.
Jeremy and Jerry.
No, I like
It's about the flavor, Jennifer. Gary and Jeremy. It'll be Gary.
The West Coast two-headed beast known as Jeremy.
So, I want to just draw attention though. If you're playing along at home, if you got a bottle of Rhar and Sons Rhar's Blonde, I want to just draw attention to the front of the bottle, the label, and what is happening to this young lady?
She passed out.
Yeah, passed
too many
out
bones.
or was knocked out.
Yeah,
it's
almost like the Rhar, the R from the Rhar and Sons just kicked her in the head.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of beer at 5%.
She looks happy though. I must say I like her outfit, and apparently someone else did too because they Mickey'd her.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
you know, it is from Texas. And...
Just to give you a quick background on Rhar and Sons, a gentleman by the name of Fritz Rhar, which you can't go wrong with a guy named Fritz. He opened up the brewing company in 2004, but his family for 150 years has been brewing beer, and they finally settled down and found themselves a place to brew in Texas. German beer, very, very popular in Texas. People don't realize it. German and Czech Pilsners are very popular here.
Well, so are Germans and Czechs.
Yeah, exactly. I was in New Braunfels over the weekend, which is very much German populated. So anyway, I know I digressed too much and the gentlemen want to drink, so let's go. Rhar and Sons Blonde!
Yes, let's do it.
I didn't do that.
Sound.
I stole your bit.
I did knock over my beer, so
It's got a nice little bit of smoke in the bottle when you open it. It smells good.
Yeah, I got the smoke too. It's always a good sign.
I do, yeah.
Smells nice.
It's got that nice, creamy, frothy head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Very
Not a-
creamy
Oh, super clear.
aroma, too.
Definitely filtered.
delightful.
Mm-hmm. Not a huge head on mine, just a little.
No,
Mm.
mine's just a wisp of a head too.
Well, I suggest you knock your bottle over first, like I do,
That
and then your
would
head
do
will
it.
be astronomical.
Mm.
Heads
It
are
has
always
that-
better in Texas.
It has that sort of malty-yeasty.
It does smell overpoweringly yeasty. I almost smell that more than the beer.
It is. It is definitely clear, though. All right.
Yes.
I'm actually going to have to wait a while to drink mine, so why don't you guys go ahead?
All right.
I got a little bit left in the bottle, so I may drink out of that first.
If
We'll
you
see
insist, Rob.
Prost! Rhar's Blonde.
Hmm. It's blonde.
You know, for guys who's pretty sick of lagers right now, this is pretty tasty.
It's very dry.
It is dry.
It's a
Very
good word.
dry.
That's a good word for it.
And when we say dry, it doesn't have like any kind of at least to me, no kind of sweetness to it.
No.
It's very weedy.
Which is unusual for a lager. You usually catch some corn malt or even rice these days, and whatever they're substituting in there for barley.
But like most
American adjunct lagers.
But like most blondes, it does have that just a kind of slight tinge of bitterness, not overpowering, just tiny bit.
Just tiny bit. Just a
Tiny
wee
bit.
little bit of bitterness.
Blondes are funny that way.
Yes, they are. They're always a wee bit bitter.
Oh, are we talking about beer?
Yes.
Mostly.
We
Mostly.
could spend a show talking about blondes. In my case, I could spend a show talking about redheads. But
Anyway, let's talk about beer.
Yeah, let's
all
gloss
right.
over
So, what
that.
are your
That's safer.
impressions, Gary? What are your impressions of Rhar's Blonde?
You know, it's pretty good. The last couple of Texas beers were kind of on the little bit of a bummer side for me. But this is good. It tastes sort of to me like a traditional blonde. It's got a little bit of that yeasty flavor, a little bit of a tangy taste to it, and dry is a good word for it. But it's also, I don't know, kind of got a mellow flavor that's refreshing to me. So I actually am enjoying it. It's a good beer. I'm kind of going to drink it fast and wish I had another one. So I think I'll give it, rating it against other blondes, not just beer in general, against other blondes, I'd probably give it a solid 7, maybe push it to an 8 if I had it on tap.
All right, so an 8 from Gary. Jeremy, what do you think?
It's dry. I'll give it that. It has a lot of carbonation in it, but it's a lot of carbonation you can see, and when I drink it, I don't really taste it, which is odd. I don't feel it, feel the bubbles.
I think they just
but I see them streaming up pretty constantly from the bottom of the glass. Yeah, it's fine. It would be great on a hot day. This is not a hot day. It's not offensive, but it's probably not a beer I would choose if I had.
Jeremy's trying very hard not to insult the beer.
No, it's not. But
He's afraid it's going to get up and punch him.
It's not a bad beer at all. Not my favorite style, but like Gary said, rating it against other blondes, it's right up there. It's a strong example of the style. So I would say because it's a good example of the style, even though it's not my favorite thing, I'll give it a 7.
You got enough disclaimers in there?
Yeah, it's.
So blondes in general, blonde beers, I should say, blondes in general.
Jeremy doesn't like blondes.
Jeremy doesn't like
favorite. I mean, we all have our personal preferences. I mean,
I find them boring.
Don't like IPAs. You find them quite boring, and there usually is less going on with the blondes, which again, we're talking about the beer, not the women.
I don't know.
Although maybe I don't know.
Some of those blondes have a lot going on.
Anybody here have a blonde wife?
No. I have blonde friends.
Okay, good. Yeah, neither do I. All right, so so. I'm sorry, Jeremy. You went with a 7. You said?
I'm gonna go with a 7.
Okay.
I went with 7.
Keith.
When I think of blondes, I usually think of the Belgian blondes, not the California blondes.
No.
So, which are entirely a different animal from this, but as a Helles lager, I think this is actually really good. I like the dryness. It's not super dry as to like not be thirst quenching, but it is dry enough to leave very, very little aftertaste, which I like a lot. It's got a good mild malty flavor. Not very sweet, but again, not very bitter either. So very approachable beer. Would be awesome on a hot day. And our hot days have slipped by us, so this isn't one for me either. But it's really good. I would give this a solid 8, and I would definitely buy it again.
What? I'm going to agree with something Gary said, which is not too common on this show, but it does happen every now and then. I think this beer would be much better on tap as opposed to the bottle.
Well, a lot of beers are.
A lot of beers are, but this one in particular, I think, could really benefit from being on tap. It's good. I will agree with Jeremy. It's good. It's a good representation, I think, of blondes. It doesn't have a lot going on, but it's got nothing in it which just totally turns me off. It's pleasant, it's good. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to have it again, but if someone had a case of Rhar's Blonde, I certainly would drink it and not feel bad about it or wish that he had something else.
You do your part, right?
Okay, well now tell us about the beer though. That's nice.
Exactly. I'm very partial to the Shiner Blonde. The Shiner beers, which we have done here on the show, were very well received. We didn't get to do one of the blondes, but they're very, very good. And even though Shiner even has a light blonde, if you can believe it, that is fantastic. It's probably one of the better light beers I've ever tried. And this one just kind of pales in comparisons. It's a weak comparison. So that being said, I'm going to agree with Gary and Jeremy. I think it's a 7. It's a good representation of a blonde, not the best one I've ever had. So that's where I would go.
Well, that's good. Rounds it to a 7.25, which is right in line with Beer Advocate. They had a 77 out of 100, so we're right in their wheelhouse. And I think the average on Untappd was like 3.5, which is like a 7. So
and that's a good rating for Beer Advocate. I that's a solid rating.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
It's pretty good. And I got a new badge. I got a level 5 on the Lagerjack badge.
Hey.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Hey.
That's not easy to do.
Yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy for me.
High in the loggers.
So next week, folks,
a lot of abuse.
for our next podcast, we're going to conclude the Texas unit, the Texas chapter, with an IPA from Rhar's. I know the
Looking
guys
forward
will be
to that.
excited about that, and excited to conclude the Texas unit. Stretch this out. We've got like 2.5 months.
We made those 6 beers last a long time.
Really stretched it out. Very good. All right.
I got another 6 or 8 on their way, hopefully this week. So
we're on to our topics segment for the podcast, which is known as Pint Taken. And here comes some bumper music.
Harry, your socks don't match.
You see, we drink all we can, the rest we sell.
There you go.
Okay.
Is that a bumper?
It's a bumper. These are inspired from classic beer ads.
Okay.
How much classic beer were you drinking when you put them together?
You know, it was. I did it at work, believe it or not, right before the 4th, so it was really slow.
Wow.
Pure pro right here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so our
I was really
friends, our friends over at Brew Salt have begun a Kickstarter project. Kickstarter started talking about this last podcast. Kickstarters have very much become the thing for small and big companies alike. So this is actually Keith put this topic up. So why don't you tell us about the Kickstarter, Keith?
I did.
Or Jeremy.
Or Jeremy. Or Jerry.
I'd be happy to because I did look at it too, but I think it is Jeremy's topic.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think I came across this on their Twitter feed. They are using Kickstarter to fund their marketing, is what it sounds like. They're going to use the money to promote the product. It's already a product, so they're not trying to kickstart the product itself. This is a great way for those of us who are not on the East Coast to get some brew salt, and also to help out the company at the same time. I ended up supporting the 4-pack of bigger salts. I'm out of the habanero and the lime, so I'm looking forward to those salts coming in. And I would encourage you to check it out if you like beer. This stuff is really pretty interesting in beer.
The lime salt may be really good in this blonde. Let me try some.
The interesting thing is Kickstarter is becoming its own marketing venue. You know, just by having one, even like a low rate. This one, they're only looking for like $5,000, so it's a very low for Kickstarter goal to hit. But it's free advertising, and it gives you a chance
all the time.
to buy in and get some of the stuff anywhere you are. We did a show on it, if you missed it, a few back. That was actually a lot of fun, and we liked a lot of their salts. So if you insist on drinking cheap and bad beer, then you really want to get some beer salt. Yeah. And even if you drink some good beer, you might want to experiment with some beer salt. It's worth doing. So yeah, I think I'm going to go in probably at the same level Jeremy's at, because the 4-flavor pack seems like the best deal. So although I'm tempted to get the one with the T-shirt, because I just want a big beer salt T-shirt.
Yeah, just to have that logo.
Yeah, that logo's pretty awesome. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I have some birthday money to spend. It might be spent on beer salt.
The Rhar Blonde benefits nicely from the lime.
I bet it does. I bet it'd be really good with a habanero too.
Yeah, actually, that's what I did. I put a little habanero in there, and it worked out. It was good.
I baconed it, but I think I oversalted it.
You can't over-bacon something.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
you can't
hard to
over
overbake.
bacon. You can oversalt
You
it.
really can.
You can
yeah.
oversalt but not over bacon. The interesting thing to me is that it's they're just using Kickstarter really as a promotional tool.
Yeah,
And,
that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
agreed.
And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I like brew salts. I think their product is great. It's a good idea, and I think it stands on its own. So I don't know. I guess there's.
Well, I mean, I would agree.
I don't think it's
I
any
agree
different
they're
than
using
having
it
a Facebook
for.
page.
I agree they're using it for advertising, but it could also be to get to a next step.
It could be, although that wasn't clear to me.
$5,000 is not that much money.
Yeah.
No.
I think they'll do well as a company.
Yeah, I think it's a sales tool, if nothing else, and I'm okay with that. I mean, it's nothing worse than having a Facebook page, a Google Plus page. You need to have these things. You should probably, if you're a new company, have a Kickstarter too,
Sure.
for some part of it. I'm just surprised at how conservative they went. And if I were them, I think I might have been more aggressive because their product does already exist and stand on its own. They really could have done something interesting if they wanted.
And maybe offer some rewards of, something that's unique to the Kickstarter project.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
their backers are getting, of $10 or more, are getting a sticker and a note of thanks. $20 or more gets a 4-ounce shaker of lime brew salt and 2 brew salt coasters. $20, and it goes on and on and on. They do all the way up to $125 or more. You get a 4-flavor variety pack, T-shirt, logo sticker, and coasters.
Yeah, that's the one I'm considering doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Again,
I really
they
would
do
like
have
to
an awesome
try
logo.
these. I really would like to try this on popcorn. I think that would be really good.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the habanero on popcorn. would
Yeah.
probably-
Oh yeah.
I might
Or
actually
even
do
the
that
chocolate.
tonight. I might do that. I might use the rest of my habanero
Bacon would be
tonight.
really good in popcorn.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. That's twice in one show that Rob and I have agreed, or we've.
I know. It's the apocalypse.
The show's clearly coming to an end.
It is. We're done. There's a meteor. It's going to hit.
In your Kickstarter, and we're big fans of yours, and hope you have some more success.
Yeah, they're good guys and gals over there. I do hope that they do well with this and with their product.
Oh, absolutely. All right, next on our topic tonight were our spoilers. I want to talk about spoilers a little bit. I saw a PBS idea video that came out just today on, I think it was the Mary Sue, which is kind of a geek website run by the Mediaite folks, and the video itself is kind of convoluted, but it caused me to think a little bit that I'd seen an article a few months back on Entertainment Weekly about spoiler rules. And we live in a society today where spoilers are a big part of our lexicon of who we are, because we're not a people that watch a television show the night it airs anymore. We either watch it on DVR days, sometimes even weeks later, or we binge watch it when it comes up on Netflix or on view on demand, and those kinds of things. So spoilers are kind of a tough minefield to negotiate. When can you start talking about a show? What parts of it can you mention? Do you guys have any rules for spoilers when you're talking about shows, either when you're talking about it with somebody else or when someone else happens to mention it to you?
I don't care if somebody spoils a show for me.
You don't watch anything.
Well, even the shows I watch, the few shows that I do watch, I don't care if somebody tells me what's going to happen, because experiencing it happen is still its own thing.
It depends. To me, yeah, I agree with that. The experience of watching it is most of the entertainment value for me. The spoiler thing for me, if it's a book that they're making into a movie or a TV show or something, and the book has been out for months, years, whatever, then the spoiler rules kind of don't necessarily exist, because there's probably a lot of people that have already read that material and have seen it before. And anybody that really, really, really wanted to know what was going to happen, just to know what was going to happen, would get the book. So, depends on the content and the source.
Probably for for shows now, 24-hour window is about all you can expect.
I think with
I don't know
DVRs, you
about
gotta
that. Yeah, you got to give them longer for DVRs. There's a lot of people that are cord cutting now and wait for the seasons to come on Netflix and stuff like that. So I mean, some of these people are waiting, 6 months to a year after a season ends to watch it.
And there are varying degrees of how you can spoil something. I mean, you can actually
I've heard
actively
people
go out and post on Facebook, can you believe the ending of last Game of Thrones, and start talking about, or put it like right in the title, or
and there's people that complain just about you saying the ending. You don't say anything specific about it. You're talking in generalities, and still it's enough to send some people over the edge because, well, now they know to expect something. Well, it was the end of a major freaking show. Of course you're going to expect something.
Yeah, so I mean, it can be as brazen as putting the spoiler right in your topic if you're posting on the internet or sending an email to somebody, or it can be as benign as, hey, did you see the end of Lost? And if the person says no, it's okay, well, I won't spoil it for you.
I think the whole idea is to just never talk, especially about television. Movies are a different animal, but just never talk about television.
Yeah, and that's kind of the premise that the Entertainment Weekly article goes on. That we now are in a society where we can no longer talk about anything.
Right. Twitter is going the other way. They're trying to become the place where people talk about live events and stuff like that.
TV
and
shows
I think that's a terrible mistake, because I think the best thing you can do is actually not talk about anything that's on television ever.
Well,
just keep it to yourself.
What would we talk about on this show?
I mean, you shouldn't even say if a show is good or not, because that in itself will cause somebody to expect something, and then they won't enjoy it as well because they believed you when you said it was good.
Okay. But back in the day, going the Wayback Machine, us guys were all up around the 40-year-old threshold or higher. There were certain landmark shows back when we were younger that were called water cooler shows. Oh yeah. Seinfeld is a good example of a water cooler show. And what a water cooler show was that everyone the next day would talk about what was on that show, because unless you taped it on your VCR and you had to, spend 15, 20 minutes to try to get the timer to work, most of us watched the show when it was on. So you had a reasonably good chance of anybody you talked to the next day, if they watched that or are interested in that show at all, had watched it, and you could discuss it. Johnny Carson was another water cooler show, where you talked about the guests or Johnny's monologue or the skits that they did.
I miss Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny Carson was the man.
He really was.
And there were shows like that, throughout the decades that were certain seminal shows that everybody could talk about the next day. Now, we still have those shows. Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, what's another one? Orange is the New Black for a lot of people now. They really love that show.
Now, that's one that, I haven't finished the first season of Orange is the New Black, and the second one just came out in the last few weeks, right?
Couple months.
Yeah. If somebody tells me about what happens in the first season of Orange is the New Black, that's on me, because that's a Netflix show. You could binge watch the whole thing in a matter of a couple of days if you wanted to. So I think that's okay to talk about that, because the Netflix shows that they release all of them at once. The spoiler window is much shorter on those, because people probably watch all of those. I'm probably an anomaly. Everybody watches those pretty quickly. They may not watch them all in a weekend, but they're going to watch. They may watch it over the course of, like, say, a month. You watch a couple.
That brings up a tangent I actually want to know from you guys. If I can derail the show for a second.
Please.
What do you guys do with those shows? I mean, we watch all the shows that are Netflix originals, but we tend to watch them as we were brought up to watch them, and we tend to watch about one show a week, give or take. Sometimes two shows a week.
Wow.
But we don't binge watch them. Neither Cindy nor I has ever gotten into binge watching, because we normally only watch one or two shows a night, and we got a rotation of shows that we do, and we basically pick whatever show is lowest on the recently watched list on Netflix and watch that.
I will say
so it naturally rotates.
For 2014, that's showing a lot of restraint.
It's not really a restraint. Like I said, we look at the recently watched list on our Apple TV or whatever you're watching Netflix on. You all have it, and we just pick the oldest one in general. Occasionally, there's some favorites that we'll go back to and hit twice a week, but for the most part, we don't really binge. And I don't know if we're the anomaly or if there's like just about maybe only 10% of the internet out there that really binge watches.
I think you're becoming the anomaly. Perhaps it's not.
I don't know.
Not the majority of folks, but I think that kind of watching with shows that are released all at once is becoming the anomaly. House of Cards for us was that Netflix show, and what we do, I mean, I guess it's kind of in the middle of binge watching. We don't sit down and literally watch every episode in one sitting or over a weekend, but what we will do is perhaps maybe watch 2 episodes a night over the course of a week or a week and a half.
So really, so in theory, your nightly viewing with your wife or whatever, you're roughly just watching one show for a week at a time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not for certain shows. Now, for something like Game of Thrones, that's the only show that I can think of off the top of my head. That's the only show that my wife and I will watch live when it's on. Mostly, it's because it's HBO and there's no commercials, so you don't have to worry about that. But that's the only show we will watch the night it comes on because we just cannot wait to watch it.
See, HBO is the opposite end of the spoiler spectrum for me. Like Netflix, if you don't watch it within, like, say, the first few weeks of when it's out, then just expect to have spoilers. But HBO shows, because they take so long to actually get to the point for people that, unless you subscribe to HBO, like I don't subscribe to HBO, so I'm a season or 2 behind on all of those shows. People should shut their mouths about those shows and let other people watch them, because to me, of course, Game of Thrones, again, that's one of those books, so if you really want to know, you can read the book. But like, say Dexter, or one of those that isn't based on previous work. You need to keep quiet for months to let people that don't actually have HBO get to that content.
Well, I don't know if you need to necessarily keep quiet as much as you need to preface any conversation you want to have. Like, you want to talk about the show, you check first to see if the person you're discussing it with has seen it. And then if they have, great. If not, great too. Or if you want to discuss it on the internet, you need to put in your topic of whatever you're posted that there are spoilers, or start off your article with that so people who haven't seen the show can switch away.
Yeah, especially if you're posting.
I wouldn't advocate total blackout. I mean, we need to
not total blackout, but I've seen stuff even in headlines for shows that were enough to be spoilers, which I think is shitty.
I think you can.
By the way, Brazil got their ass kicked the other day in the World Cup as a spoiler.
Oh man, I haven't watched it yet. You ass.
Yeah, no, sporting events. That's another good tangent, because that's almost a separate category.
You got to watch that. You don't have to watch it live, but you got to watch it. You have to watch it. You got to watch it that day.
You can't spoil a sporting event because it's instant news what the results are.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
So there's no spoiling it. The news will spoil it for you. There's no instant news for Game of Thrones. Well, in some cases.
Last week's USA match against Belgium. I listened to most of it on the way home and watched the overtime period on the way home. I knew that America had lost. I went next door, and my brother and sister-in-law were sitting down to watch it because they didn't get home until later, and they had it in their DVR. And I said, "Oh, you're watching the soccer match," and they immediately screamed at me, "Don't say anything!" Well, yeah. I'm a person who I would never, ever, ever go out of my way to spoil a show for anyone, because I don't like to have that knowledge. So the last thing I want to do is spoil that for somebody else.
At least they were watching it the day of.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You can. I will respect that the day of. If it's the next day.
And if you're going to do that, you got to make some effort. You've got to turn off the internet. You've got to.
You really do.
You can't be listening to the radio. You can't look at a newspaper.
It's navigating a minefield,
and that is on you to do that. And even so, if it goes more than 24 hours, I think you're toast.
Yeah. Next morning.
So at the Entertainment Week, to kind of pull this back in, they have rules. The normal rule back in the day was that you had a 24-hour grace period for shows that where there's a new episode every week, and they say that still pretty much holds. You can still they say you are allowed to use code names or hashtags or otherwise non-specific descriptors that happened, but you can discuss it 24 hours after. Do you guys agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
For broadcast shows.
Yeah, everybody knows when it's broadcast. If you're not going to watch it that day or the next day, just be careful about what you look at Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would agree with that too.
You can't expect people to not talk about a show. That's not realistic.
Again, if you do that preface with your
although I will say the television industry in general could use a good blackout period. If everybody just stopped talking about TV in general,
that's what I was going to say. There's more important things to talk about.
Freaking places, so they get off their damn high horses and start giving us the content we want when we want it. God damn it.
All right.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Their second rule is for TV shows that come from Britain. Now, shows like Sherlock or Downton Abbey, they actually air in Britain months before they get here. So,
which is the same thing for our shows and other parts of the world.
Same thing for shows that go there. Yeah. And so for things like Sherlock or Downton Abbey, their rule is basically you should stay away from anything British.
Okay, so here's the thing: we have to stay away from anything British, or
don't
the British
talk to English people
shouldn't talk about their shows that take 6 months to get here. But all of our shows take 6 months to get there too, and we're all talking about them the next day.
That's Keith's right.
It's
broadcast. They should just you air it on. Pick a time and a day, and that's when HBO shows whatever it is, or BBC shows whatever show they have, and that's the whole world gets it that day.
Well, but see, the Brits are very, and I guess the Americans too, because they do the same thing. Yeah. They're very territorial about their shows.
It's stupid.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
All that's doing is
in the age of the internet,
people to download it illegally. That's just encouraging.
And you know what? If it is a good show,
Jeremy,
if it's a good show. It doesn't matter. Like Sherlock, I don't care if people tell me what happens in the next season because watching it when I finally download it or wherever I happen to get it, it's going to be great. That show is amazing. It doesn't matter what people tell me.
Yeah, but I will say that Sherlock and shows of its ilk, where they are mystery shows, and the reveal of what happened in the mystery is part of the entertainment. I mean, I guess everyone's personal preferences are. I mean, if you don't mind being spoiled, that's your business, I guess. But for something like that, especially, or Lost, where something is, or Game of Thrones, or Game of Thrones is a separate issue because their books have been out for those. But new content where people have just not had the opportunity to watch it. I don't know. I always err on the side of not spoiling things for people unless they say it's okay.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to act in society. But it's it's another issue entirely as to whether we should have to act in society that way because of all these artificial limitations.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's the artificial
creating the spoiler situation is the fact that all these shows have artificial limitations that are preventing some people from seeing the show.
Right. All right. So the next category.
The privileged few can decide whether or not to spoil it for the rest of us peasants.
And often do.
Yeah.
The next category, one Keith brought up earlier, these are TV shows that release all their episodes at once, like Netflix. So we're talking about House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, the new season of Arrested Development. Their rule is you get a 24-hour grace period for the first episode of the season. So like a normal broadcast show. And then you give a 1-week grace period for the first 4 episodes, 2 weeks for episodes 5 through 8.
That's already too complicated.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
3 weeks for the whole
what are we supposed to do? Get out our goddamn calculator to figure out if we can talk about a show?
Just shut up for a couple weeks. That's all I have to say.
Oh,
so their basic rule. So to sum that up, the basic rule is the first episode 24 hours, the whole series the whole season 3 weeks.
Yeah, okay. I can buy 3 weeks.
Okay. The show's based on books or comic books. Everything, because these books, like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, were the two examples that they give. They are based on a popular series of novels or comic books that have been out for a long time. For example, The Red Wedding, I will say nothing else about it other than that's The Red Wedding. It's a very important
now that
event.
you've said it, I know that it exists. You've spoiled it.
It's a very big event in a TV show. I haven't told you what TV show it's from. It's a very big event in a TV show. It's actually from a book that's 13 years old. So how is that a spoiler? I mean, it's been out there for a long time. So their rule is you can talk about anything from a TV show based on a book or comic book except for characters' deaths.
Well, then you can never talk about
all
anything
that book's about.
So forget talking about The Walking Dead.
It's about killing people.
Yeah.
There's
Game
more
of Thrones
death
and Walking Dead.
in the average
Game of Thrones,
season
right.
of Game of Thrones and the average show of Game of Thrones than there is in the whole season of Walking Dead.
Yeah, I think that rule's stupid.
That's if they die, really. Come on.
For movies, they say the rule is anything that you can talk about the first half hour of the movie whenever you want. It's not a spoiler because movies never put anything important in the first half hour anyway. That's their argument.
And the entire movie's been spoiled by the damn trailer anyway. So
Mostly, yeah.
if you've seen the trailer, you're done.
Well, and if it's a typical Hollywood movie, you know what's going to happen.
For the rest of the film, they say a
story
1 month grace period. 1 month.
For theatrical releases. Yeah, okay, I buy that. If someone had told me that Darth Vader was Luke's father, I would have been pissed.
We now have to have spoiler alerts for video games.
Oh, well, that's ridiculous.
3
Well,
weeks.
is it? No, is it though? Because I mean, a lot of these adventure and first-person video games are more epic than the average movie.
Very
you pay
cinematic.
$60. Yeah, you pay $60 and you basically play through a movie trilogy's worth of content.
Yeah,
So,
I
absolutely. There certainly can be spoilers.
I played the Mass Effect video game series, and I've played through the first 2 games. There's one more. I know that there is something big, major that happens at the end of Mass Effect 3. I have gone out of my way to make sure I never read any articles about Mass Effect 3. But again, that's on me to make sure.
Video games are easier to avoid than other content, though.
Yeah, but all I know is if I see an article that has Mass Effect 3 in the title, I might, if it's a review, I might just look at what the review is and I'll move on.
Yeah.
Well, I just picked up Mario Kart for the Wii, so don't tell me how it ends.
Mario wins. For books,
Damn it!
For books, they give a 2-week spoiler alert from when the book is released. I don't really think that's much of an issue anymore, honestly.
I think, books aren't an issue, and I think it's got to be more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You're talking months in the timeline of that.
Yeah, a lot of people can't finish a book in 2 weeks. I mean, a lot of us don't have that kind of time to dedicate to a novel.
I mean, I guess when it was like the Harry Potter series, and the majority of people were reading them the first week or 2 that they were out. But
I will say that's probably I gotta think that's the last series that I can recall, even with the Hunger Games and Divergent and Twilight and all that kind of stuff. That's the last series I really remember where the secrecy veil was in full effect and people were actively avoiding spoilers.
Yeah. I think Hunger Games and Twilight both had this very similar effect for those who were into it.
Yeah. The last rule is for folks who live in California. It's really the rule is for folks who don't live in California. Their rule is you do not go on any social media for 3 hours. For folks who aren't in California, don't. Let me rephrase this. If you live in California, you don't go on any social media 3 hours before your favorite show airs.
Yes, that's for Californians, because we will hear and see everything that happens.
So again, with the whole Twitter being the place to talk about live events, oh wait, it's not really live; it's tape delayed.
But sports would be a different issue because it's always on the same time.
But okay, it's 8 o'clock here for me. I'm checking my Twitter feed before I sit down to watch TV. Everybody on the East Coast has already seen everything. So if they're talking about it, for me it's still just after dinner before I even have a chance to watch it.
Right.
So that rule does make a little bit of sense. Although it's it's just
It is not
TV.
my fault that you chose to live out there. All right.
Well,
I don't think you should get to limit me.
The Entertainment Weekly folks do say get over
I will
yourself.
say this. I will take all of the spoilers because I live in California. It happened, because I was on social media, only because I can get Pliny the Elder on tap. It's worth it to me to be able to do that for all of those spoilers.
And if you have enough Pliny, you'll forget all the spoilers anyway before you see the show.
That's true.
Or just forget about Pliny. The Entertainment Weekly folks do say at the end to the Californians, get over yourself because you got all the good weather in the deal.
Yeah.
Which is fair. I think that's fair. If I had to have if you just took one rule from this, it's just don't be a douchebag. Just don't be a jerk about spoilers. That's all.
Well, that's pretty much rule number one for any topic.
That's
for
life
anything,
in
yeah. The golden rule has been summarized to don't be a douchebag.
Well, and that's true though. I mean, we have that phrase at our company is we're quick to point out when one of the other of us around us breaks rule number one, and rule number one is don't be a dick. So I'm like, oh man, you broke rule number one.
Right.
So,
oh well. Yeah, that's
just life. That's life.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a healthy, spirited topic. And we moved from that to our less healthy, less spirited half pint segment. And here comes Keith with some bumper music.
Next time it's your turn to bring the beer. How about the one that's always an unexpected pleasure?
They don't do anything.
How could it always be an unexpected pleasure?
Because nobody thinks you're actually going to bring that damn beer.
Could you at least get like jingles from beer companies that maybe don't exist anymore? See, I could go with that. Like actual music. Oh my god.
Some of those
and
had
oh
some
god,
jingle.
Keith is first in half pint.
You asked.
Welcome to the pre-show.
I think that was Schlitz. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that was the Schlitz jingle.
Wow. Schlitz malt liquor. Keith's first on the half pint. Yeah. And of course, his entry is blank. Keith, what do you want to talk about?
Is blank. Because I've been withholding this pick for about 2 months now. And it was partially because I didn't want to share it. I didn't want anybody else to know about my secret pick. But it was also because I wasn't sure how this would play with the average Joe. But I have been completely and totally absorbed and addicted with an online card game from Blizzard called Hearthstone. And it is totally free to play. And if you've ever played any kind of collectible card game before, online or in reality, like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or any of these collectible card games where you do battle with, head-to-head battle with a person across from you, this game will instantly feel familiar and easy to pick up. And because it's free to play, it's simple to pick up, and you can 100% play it without dropping a dime on it, because you earn in-game gold. The in-game gold can be used to buy card packs and so on. So they've made it 100% approachable. But if you want to drop some money on buying more packs of cards, you can. So it's really good. But they're about to release their first expansion for it since it came out a little while ago. It came out. It's actually been out for probably about 6 months now, I think. It's playable for free on the PC, but about 2 months ago when I got involved is when it came to the iPad. And playing this game on the iPad is a dream. So that is definitely my preferred way to play it. But you can play it on a PC if you don't have an iPad.
Multiplayer?
Multiplayer. Well, it's all about multiplayer. I mean, you play against
Sweet.
computer AI to get the training, but it's head to head against someone else. Every time you sit down for a match, it's you against someone else. There's a ranking system that you work for. There's an arena system, which is basically the limited environment where you draw random cards to make a deck and go. It's I'm not going to get into the whole mechanics of deck building and all that stuff. If you know it, you'll like it. If not, go through the tutorials and you'll kind of see what it's all about.
You said Hearthstone?
Hearthstone.
It's based in the Warcraft universe.
Yeah, it's totally in the Warcraft universe. But I don't have any history in the Warcraft universe really, except by the other than I think I played Warcraft 3 maybe 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't have any experience with World of Warcraft, where most of the lore for this comes from. But you don't have to. It's just that the characters are the characters, and you pick it up as you go.
I will pick it up, and we shall play.
It is
sounds cool.
100% addicting. I am playing all the time. I will take. Other people take smoke breaks at work. I will take a bathroom break just to play Hearthstone. I will play a match of Hearthstone, and then come back to work.
Too much information.
Yeah, it probably is, but it's that's how addicting it is for me. I have eschewed all other games on my iPad, and as you guys know, since we started making picks, I have made iOS and iPad picks for a long time, and I have thrown all those other games away for this.
Wow. I will download tonight.
It is amazingly good. If you're a card player, I mean, Rob and I have a history of playing Magic the Gathering. If you've never played Magic the Gathering, I'm not sure how quickly you'd pick it up, but it seems like if you go through the tutorials and the first few levels with whatever character you choose, I think you'll get a grasp of it pretty quick, and I think it's playable by anyone.
Cool.
So that's my pick. Hearthstone. I love it. I'll have to give to Jeremy in my show notes my BattleNet ID. So if anybody out there is listening to this and you want to challenge me, I will put my BattleNet ID in the show notes, and you guys can come find me.
Yeah.
Cool. Hearthstone of Dragons.
What's that?
Is it Hearthstone of Dragons?
No, Hearthstone.
Oh, okay.
Hearth. Hearth.
There's a link in the show notes.
That's different.
It's this. There you go.
Busy night, but there's always room for another.
There it is. There's the opening screen.
I recognize that dwarf voice from Warcraft 3.
Yeah. He's the innkeeper now.
Yeah. Right. My pick, along with a love of Magic the Gathering that Keith and I share, we also have a love for role-playing games. And Dungeons & Dragons is certainly the grandfather of all of those games. And it's kind of been a love-hate relationship for me with Dungeons & Dragons. I came into it with 3rd edition. That's when I learned with Keith and friends. We used to play every week. And then kind of got... I know Keith and others got disillusioned with 3rd edition and kind of left it behind, and we actually served as playtesters for another role-playing game that we came up with that was much more along the simple lines. And then 4th edition came out, and what 4th edition was all about was trying to get all the World of Warcraft players over to play D&D by giving every type of character and every class a list of powers that they can do. Just almost like point-and-click powers in Warcraft. So every character got to do something really, really cool, and Tide of Iron, every power had some awesome title to it. And what that did was, it brought in the World of Warcraft players, but it also slowed the game down tremendously and just made kind of everything
an already slow game.
Seem mediocre. So with the 5th edition, the inevitable 5th edition, they basically reinvent themselves every 4 or 5 years. They went out to the public first. About 175,000 people play tested, and basically they said, what do you want in the next version? Because there were a lot of traditionalists that hated it. So what they came up with was 5th edition. It's kind of scalable, so you can put in as much complexity or as little as possible. And Wizards is actually offering a PDF of the basic rules to give you kind of a handle on how it's played. And I've just been reading through it for the last couple days, and I will tell you that it is a much simpler version and way of playing. So much so that I think I probably could run it without having to get all the little miniatures out, which, you know, the big battle scenes is what can really bog down D&D, and people having to look up rules can really bog down D&D. And this kind of tries to avoid that and make things a lot simpler. I'm not saying I'm going to be picking up 5th edition when it officially comes out in a couple of weeks, but I will tell you that the reason this is my pick is I think it's worth it if you are an RPG fan to go over to Wizards and check out the basic rules and see if it's something that you might like to play. I have been kind of disillusioned on RPGs for the last year or so, but after reading this, I'm kind of intrigued about maybe getting back into D&D and perhaps trying 5th edition again, and maybe especially with some friends over the internet. Anyway, so Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition basic rules are out on Wizards of the Coast. Check it out if you're interested. That's my pick.
Cool.
Okay. Next up is Gary. He's got nothing there. Gary, your name's not Keith.
You stole my pick, Gary.
I stole their pick. My pick is actually a movie that I went and saw this week. It is The Edge of Tomorrow, which
I've heard that's really good.
Has anybody seen that? Rob, have you seen
Not
this?
yet. I really want to see it.
Okay, then I won't spoil it for you.
Hey!
You can only talk about the first half hour.
That's
It
right.
has been 3 weeks, though, or a month.
It's been, yeah, you know, and in our theater, it got moved into a small theater and was only playing once a day at 10 o'clock at night. So it was actually an effort to see it, but it was my daughter's birthday and we decided to go. So it's sort of a mashup of Groundhog Day and Starship Troopers, but not so campy. In that there's a time loop thing going on and stuff, and there's these aliens that are fighting. But it's actually what's really good. I was surprised by it because Tom Cruise hasn't had a good movie since Far and Away. That was his last good movie.
Wow, that's a long time. I think he's had a couple of good ones in there.
Far and away to go.
That was
1992. Okay.
That was a terrible movie. No, but Tom
Mission
Cruise, I mean,
Impossible 1.
yeah, no, he's done some good action adventure type of movies, and you know, sci-fi is not far from him. Minority Report was a good
Minority
sci-fi.
Report was decent.
Great movie.
Yeah.
And even the last one he did, Oblivion, wasn't terrible. It was
No. But you know, for me, Tom Cruise movies are always Tom Cruise is in a movie, right? And
Right.
but I thought he actually did a good job with this, and it was a good role for him, and he did well in it. And his female co-star, I thought, was a good pick for it. And it's a good sci-fi action movie. And when you see it, Keith or Rob, when you see it, I would like to talk with you about it a little bit in more detail. But I would say it's a movie that is worth seeing. So,
You know, that just gave me an idea. Talking about that and spoilers tonight, we should do like a sub podcast that's just called Spoilers. We just talk about spoil everything. Just spoil it. Just call it Caution Spoilers. Yeah, this movie
there's a podcast out there called Cord Killers, which is all about the cord cutting revolution. But one of the things they do it started as a separate segment, now it's a separate show. It's called the Spoiler Zone, where they talk about the content of the content that you can get. So yeah.
The Edge of Tomorrow is definitely one of those movies that you can talk about. A lot of movies that deal with time loops and time travel and stuff like that.
I love movies like that.
Yeah, you can definitely get a lot of conversations because it's something that anyway, it's
that movie, the new Planet of the Apes movie, which is supposed to be phenomenal, and the Guardians of the Galaxy are the 3 movies I really have on my list to go see.
Yeah,
Spoiler.
definitely
Spoiler.
Yeah,
alert.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Now we know what you're going to see, Rob. Thanks.
We'll spoil it for you.
You're welcome.
All right.
All right, so last up, Jeremy.
My pick this week is an iOS application called Random, and it is something like a news feed, and something like a social application, but with none of the login and social and follow and like stuff. So this uses algorithms to determine if you are interested in a subject, what other articles may you be interested in. And I don't know how these guys' algorithm works, but it's totally, it feels really random, but it feels like everything's related at the same time. And when you start the app, it picks a random group of subjects for you. For example, if I start it now, I get a set of subjects. Let's see, Marvel, Creative Focus, Disney, Resume, Ernest Hemingway, Relationships. These are all related somehow, it thinks. And if you pick one, it'll jump you to that article. When you read the article, there's no rating, there's no like, there's no social, there's no login, there's none of that stuff. It's all
just reading.
Just reading and this back-end algorithm figuring out what maybe is next in the list. And it's fun to sit down when you have a few minutes and you want to read something, but you don't know what you want to read and you've read your news feeds. I like to pick this up and just jump through a few articles. It's pretty cool.
Is
and
this
it's free.
it?
Yes, that's it.
That's the one? Okay. Because you can't actually search for random in iTunes.
Yeah, it's hard to find. It's hard to find the application. There's a link in the show notes.
It was actually like the third one for me on the list. So
interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's some good picks tonight, gentlemen, and a pretty good beer. No spoilers, but we all basically did like the blonde. Not as good as perhaps other blondes, but a good representation of it nonetheless. So next week we're gonna try. Yeah, we're gonna try the Rhar and Sons IPA, and finish up Texas. Not literally.
Amber bright, plenty of body. Double Diamond, the beer the men drink.
Okay. So for all of us, I'm actually going to say...
Speaking of random.
I'm not going to say for all of us. I'm going to say for Jeremy and Gary, I'm Rob. Thank you very much for watching us, listening to us on iTunes or Stitcher or any of those other places where you happen to find the Pint and No Return show. And please tell your friends and even some of your enemies if you really want to bore them to tears and they like beer. Pint and No Return is not a bad place to go. So thanks, guys.
I'd rather have lager than life. I'll take a strong stout over stride. I prefer to confer with a half pint of ale than live a long life till my private parts fail. For life without liquor is to no avail. So bring me lager for life. I'd rather have lager than life.
Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Soylent Green is people!
Bruce Willis.